How do you deal with employees? Do you have temporary foreign workers? How do you deal with multiple locations? How do you deal with business process? Your real estate is one aspect and your operations are another. And do you have a sharing arrangement between your real estate and your operations? Because many do. That will impact how you do diligence. That'll impact how you do the purchase agreement and the disclosure schedules, of course. So it's questions to ask.
Welcome to The Fuel Line, where we explore all things automotive with a focus on mergers and acquisitions. Hi, my name's Fareed Ahmed. I'm the founder and the CEO of DSMA and your favorite podcast host. Each episode, we connect with influential figures that drive the automotive landscape. Let's shift into gear and get started. Welcome to The Fuel Line, where we explore all things automotive with a focus on mergers and acquisitions. Each episode, we connect with influential figures to bring you insight that drives the automotive landscape. Hi, my name's Fareed Ahmed, founder and CEO of DSMA and your favorite automotive podcast host. Let's shift into gear and get started. Today, we have the pleasure of speaking with Michael Caruso, a partner at Miller Thomson, a law firm based in Toronto, and the co-leader of their private equity group. Miller Thomson is a national business law firm, and Michael is a recognized leader in the field of corporate law, specializing in cross-border M&A, which is a very hot subject these days, private equity transaction, and complex business dealings across various industries, including automotive, finance, and technology. His expertise has earned him the recognition in the Canadian Legal Expert Directory, and he's known for his strategic advice to top global institutions. And we ourselves at DSMA use Miller Thomson exclusively. Great firm. Hi, Michael. How are you?
I'm well, Fareed. How are you?
Fantastic. Michael, thank you for taking the time today to spend some time on Fuel Line.
My pleasure.
Let's get started, and I'll ask you a few questions. The first question I always like to ask so the audience can get to know you is, tell us a little bit about yourself and how you first got into this type of law.
Well, I grew up in a household where there was always law and was involved. My father was a litigation lawyer, still is to this day in his 80s.
Is he really?
He is.
Crazy.
It's a little crazy. So I had a sense of what it was going to be like,
right,
a little bit. And then I in undergrad, I was quite drawn to business courses, statistics, economics. And so that kind of made a lot of sense. Math wasn't a super specialty when I was young,
right.
And so it's kind of like this made sense. The business side made sense. So then law school made sense. And so I went and did law school and then continued on after that practice into firms that had a lot of discipline and expertise in this industry of automotive and in private equity. So I think having that opportunity and working with a lot of professionals in that space and getting a lot of opportunity to see what they did was very fortunate for me. And so then I continued, and that was the path that led me to where we are here today, just spending more time in this space.
People tune in to hear us talk about the M&A transaction, and it's getting more and more complicated, as you and I were discussing earlier.
Right.
What best advice could you give anybody contemplating getting into a transaction or who are currently in a transaction from your perspective?
I think that the areas, there's a couple of areas that are really quite, are fundamental. Starting with a really well done term sheet is actually probably the beginning and the end, the path to a good transaction. You can tackle very difficult issues with people that are in that space, but doing it early is very, very, very helpful.
Good advice.
If you don't do that, you tend to have a broken down process. The second, probably most important thing for success is that you focus on a process that makes sense between, what for the goals you're trying to achieve. Have you identified the steps that you think are necessary to get you to there? And so I think focusing on, strong process is really, really super important. And I'm sure you see this in the business with DSMA as well.
We do.
And then I think, having a really good plan about communication in our team, communicating with clients, advisors to the space is really, really important. Really communicating what your expectations are, when we're going to do them, what are the issues, and more importantly, what happens when it doesn't go to plan.
Yes.
So those are really, really kind of like three kind of critical
Wonderful.
things.
From Miller Thomson's perspective and yours, Michael, what is the most common pitfalls that people should avoid while they're involved in mergers and acquisition?
I think there's, from different perspectives, there's different participants, obviously, in the transaction. I think from the seller's perspective, I think it's about being well organized. If you're well organized entering into the process, then the outcome should be better for you. And what do I mean by well organized? It could be speaking about how you're going to coordinate the diligence process,
right.
How you're going to transition from diligence to the legal process, because
right.
there's a gap there, right?
Yep.
And I think that having a really good discussion with your advisors about how to do those things and be prepared from that perspective is important.
Sure.
From the buyer side, it's probably about communicating what your plan is and managing the expectations of all the other participants on the sell side. It might be as simple as, just because we do this business diligence process doesn't mean it's over for you. For non-sophisticated sellers,
right.
they may not know this.
Right.
Running in parallel the business and then running a transaction, very different process that many people have not done.
Got it.
Right? So I think those are probably the two biggest things. And then I think being prepared for changes along the way. They happen. You must see this. We see this quite often.
We do.
And on the buy side, when they've signed an LOI, many times they have not yet done any kind of material diligence. Right? They have some high level of diligence if it's a process. If it's not a process, well, it's the Wild West, because they're now going into something new, and they can find some different results that would impact their view about value. And then managing those risks for the buyer is one thing. And the sellers are kind of like, when you sell and you sign the LOI, it's kind of like, okay, it's done, right? It's just, when do I pick up the check?
Right.
And as you know, this is not ordinary course, ordinary
It's
process.
Not,
So
absolutely.
Being a bit nimble, being a bit creative.
And being able to pivot, I suppose, right? Given something that, and we've all seen these things that just throw a wrench in the works on the most streamlined things.
Right.
And sometimes people are not adaptable enough, I feel. But your law firm certainly is.
I think that comes with experience.
Yes.
We've had time in this space, which is not a traditional M&A space, in the sense that there's some very bespoke things that happen in automotive retail M&A, as you know. And I think being aware of what they might be, anticipating a little bit what they may be, and able to ask questions in advance before they come about when you're specifically on the sell side. So how do you deal with employees? How do you deal with, do you have temporary foreign workers? How do you deal with multiple locations? How do you deal with business process? Right? Your real estate is one aspect and your operations are another. And do you have a sharing arrangement between your real estate and your operations? Because many do. And so that will impact how you do diligence. That'll impact how you do the purchase agreement and the disclosure schedules, of course. So it's questions to ask.
Got it.
Right?
One of our audience members did send a question earlier, and they were saying, when choosing and selecting a law firm to help in their M&A, we know that Miller Thomson has done some of the biggest deals in the Canadian market. Why would somebody choose Miller Thomson over, say, another law firm, specifically for the M&A side in the automotive industry?
It's a good question. I think that what you really are trying to do is surround yourself with people in the space that have really current experience, because I think we're seeing current issues in current transaction practice.
Okay.
We never try to displace counsel that's in place at a business. They're doing a great job and they know the business very well. So what we try to do is be very complementary to what's happening for the seller. The seller is very comfortable with their counsel. They've probably engaged with them for many, many years. They know the business, intimately. We won't know it as intimately, but we'll now have the ability to ask questions and be able to bring the answers to those questions into the transaction process. And that way, we bring our expertise and we marry it with what exists already with sellers.
And we've experienced that firsthand. One of the other things I think that Miller Thomson do very well is they shorten that length of time to go from a letter of intent to a close, and that comes, I think, from your expertise and all the great people that you have in the company. What trends in the M&A should automotive dealers keep their eye on over the next few years? Because, there's the Trump factor, there's the EV factor, there's the agency model. All of these things get thrown up from a legal perspective. If you were to give advice to any dealers about what they should maybe keep an eye on in the near future, what do you see and what do you hear?
I think, trends is a good place. I think what we're looking at is what is the impact to the automotive landscape based on what Canada's decided to do with immigration, for example. So we have a lot more people coming to Canada, which is a good thing. We have a lot of new buyers, right? And they have a lot of interest and a lot of questions. We have a younger demographic that are buying cars now. So I think they have lots of different questions about what they're looking for in terms of what they're trying to do in terms of vehicles.
Yep.
The biggest, I think, issue that we have to consider is what's happening with, AI and its impact on vehicles generally. We talk about combustion motors and electric motors and all those wonderful things, but I think the real issue is what's going to happen with artificial intelligence and the sharing of information and the communication between the vehicles and the manufacturers themselves. I think we're seeing that during COVID. We saw lots of vehicles that were getting stolen during COVID. And what we saw, and I saw it with a colleague of mine where he had a vehicle stolen. I won't name the manufacturer. It doesn't matter. But the thieves were accessing the car with a computer sitting outside the car. It was all captured on CCTV. It's crazy. And but anyways, I think artificial intelligence is a really interesting thing. I was watching something the other day. It was a podcast, I guess, and they were talking about where are we in the context of AI generally. And somebody said, give us some context, and they were based out of California. And they said, look, think about AI in the context of the internet. And we're probably 1996, 1997 version of the internet, but where we are today in artificial intelligence. So what does that mean to the car and the automotive experience?
That, isn't it?
It is. I think those are the issues that are more important than, are we still going to have combustion motors or not? I think, I'm a car enthusiast, and there's something about the sound of a combustion engine.
There really is.
There really is. And but you can't argue about some of the efficiencies of having an electric vehicle. But I think it's artificial intelligence, which is the more interesting part.
Got it.
Potentially.
So a question most probably every dealer that's watching this is going to ask is, what car do you drive and how do they sell you another one? So, where's your passion? Because I know you have a real passion for the automotive world and cars. So tell us a little bit about what you drive, what you enjoy driving.
Well, how about what I'd like to drive and then what I do drive?
Right. Okay.
Is that all right?
That's fantastic.
Okay, so if I snap my fingers,
yes,
and there could be, two vehicles in my garage that is heavily gated so nobody could see. One would be a Singer 911 Porsche.
Wow.
Because I've seen them up close. A very good friend of mine has one, and they're a work of art. I think there's certain cars that are just works of art. That would be one. And the other one for pure performance and art would be probably a Rimac Navara.
Yes.
It's just spectacular. I mean, I have to come work at DSMA to be able to afford
Honestly,
it.
You don't want to do that to yourself.
Well, maybe. And I'm happy. We've historically driven SUVs, young family, and kind of refused to do the minivan life.
Yeah.
But then I discovered now, later in life, as they've gotten older,
yeah,
I should have done minivans many years ago. I don't. But I drive. Like a SUV, BMW SUVs.
Oh, good for you.
So
good for you.
Nothing crazy.
Michael, I can't thank you enough for stopping by and spending some time on Fuel Line.
My pleasure.
My name's Fareed Ahmed, and I'd just like to thank you for all joining us again. Remember, if you like the content, share it, subscribe. Love to see you again the next time on Fuel Line.